artiste, 3 donne, 3 generazioni, 3 modi differenti di interpretare la realtà, ma un unico media, la fotografia. Oggi focalizzeremo l'attenzione su Evelyn Bencicova. Dopo una mia breve introduzione propedeutica alla visione delle opere in mostra, sarà l'artista stessa che vi racconterà del suo mondo e del suo lavoro. Evelyn Bencicova è una giovane creativa, nata a Bratislava, classe 92. Non si definisce una fotografa, in quanto sperimenta vari media, fotografia, video, attraverso i quali cerca di esprimere la sua personale visione del mondo. Evelyn ha fornito le sue realizzazioni fotografiche a diversi marchi del lusso e della moda. Possiamo citare Cartier, Gucci, ha vinto numerosi premi, fra i quali il prestigioso Assembled Masters Winner nella categoria ritratti, il Tokyo International Photo Award come New Talent of the Year. Ha consolidato collaborazioni con prestigiosi magazine quali Vogue e Elle ed è stata inserita da Art Pill nella selezione delle 30 donne fotografe sotto i 30 anni. Evelyn Bencicova riesce a combinare il suo interesse per la cultura contemporanea allo studio accademico, creando delle opere in cui la ricerca concettuale incontra quella visiva, dando vita ad ambientazioni ricercate ed esteticamente accattivanti. Nelle opere di Evelyn ogni particolare è studiato in maniera maniacale. Se guardate però con attenzione, scoprirete che la perfetta simmetria architettonica contiene un elemento surreale che distrugge l'apparente equilibrio. Evelyn crea, come lei stessa dice, delle illusioni basate sulla realtà e distorcendo la nostra percezione ci invita ad entrare nel labirinto segreto della sua mente, in cui ogni dettaglio nasconde un significato più profondo rispetto a quello che rivela in apparenza. La serie Artificial Tears, con cui inizia questo percorso espositivo, è stata realizzata nel 2017. Evelyn qui si interroga sul futuro dell'intelligenza artificiale, mettendo in risalto questioni quali la dipendenza, la moralità e i pregiudizi che il genere umano si pone rispetto a tale tematica. Evelyn in particolare si chiede: cosa distingue l'uomo dalla macchina? Le scene, sospese nel tempo, in questa serie, domandano allo spettatore che cosa accadrà dopo, lasciandolo nell'incertezza. Prima di passare alla visione delle opere della seconda serie in mostra, la serie Asymptote, dobbiamo ricordare che Evelyn è slovacca, figlia di una nazione giovane, che come Stato nazionale non esiste fino al 1939, nazione che poi è stata inglobata nella Cecoslovacchia, che è tornata indipendente nel 1993, una nazione che per 20 anni è rimasta a guida stalinista, che con la primavera di Praga del 68 ha tentato di introdurre una liberalizzazione della vita politica, per poi in seguito, attraverso un intervento militare, ritornare per altri 20 anni nell'ortodossia sovietica. Nella serie Asymptote si ritrovano molte caratteristiche legate alla visione surreale e ipnotica di Evelyn, come la ricerca di spazi affascinanti, la struttura rigorosamente geometrica delle immagini, l'uso di colori freddi e lividi, questa volta fusi non a caso con la preponderante presenza del rosso. Rosso è prima di tutto il colore legato al regime comunista, alla sua gloria e potere, lotta e amore oppure odio. Questo colore rappresenta concetti opposti ma pur sempre estremi, rosso come il colore del sangue, della vita, della rivoluzione. La serie è stata realizzata in strutture architettoniche originarie dell'era socialista. Questi luoghi, simboli un tempo di potere e grandezza, oggi si ergono statici, spogliati del loro ruolo, abbandonati o dimenticati come la loro gloria passata. In queste opere storia ed attualità, memoria e realtà si fondono. Evelyn ha cercato di interpretare come vivevano le persone nella Cecoslovacchia socialista. Ha consultato archivi, raccolto testimonianze grazie ad interviste dirette. In questo caso Asymptote non vuole far riflettere sul passato, ma piuttosto studiare lo stato attuale della società e i suoi valori. Questa serie nasce infatti da un raffronto con le persone che hanno vissuto l'era socialista da diverse prospettive. Chiudiamo la visita alla sezione della mostra dedicata a Evelyn Bencicova con il fashion film Asymptote, co-creato da Evelyn con Adam Keller e Ariel Esther. Questo è un video ipnotico ed ermetico che vi invito a visionare, in cui le opere fotografiche della serie Asymptote prendono vita. Gli artisti, che sono nati dopo la caduta del socialismo, sono comunque riusciti a notare come fra passato e presente ci siano molti punti in comune e come ogni periodo abbia a che fare con gli stessi demoni che si ripresentano sotto altre vesti.
Hello, my name is Natalia Evelyn Bencicova and I'm recording this video from my place in Berlin and I'm sending greetings to all of you. What I would like to speak about is two of my works, Asymptote and Artificial Tears, which are part of the exhibition Looking Eastwards by C Contemporary. Maybe I would start by speaking about what is connecting these two projects, which were done in different times. Asymptote was about 4 years ago and Artificial Tears started 2 years ago, but then developed in the process from photographs towards an immersive VR experience. And both of them kind of deal with particular spaces and placing the human body inside of these locations and kind of observing what kind of patterns, what kind of behavior they form in them. While one of them, Asymptote, is more reacting to the topic of the past, another one, so Artificial Tears, is more set in my idea of the future. So to be a little bit more specific, Project Asymptote kind of reflects of the previous political regime in Slovakia, let's call it socialism, and it started with my first visual fascination with the buildings which were built during this time, which are of course still in the city, but the way how they are inhabited, the way how they are seen changed quite radically. And you can see from the architecture that it's these buildings which are very important, which are given a lot of attention. It's basically, whether exterior or interior, something which makes you feel very small, impressed, and it kind of embodies this power of the regime. And even if you walk inside, you can see a lot of pattern, a lot of grandiose. And what is interesting is that today most of these buildings are still present there, but they are out of use, abandoned, or kind of dissolving in time. And what was interesting for me was to not look at this past in a documentary way, because there's a lot done about it, and probably I wouldn't be the best person to do that either, because I was born actually after the change of the regime, but more to observe what stayed in the society and how it affects the life or thinking behavior of the people living there right now. So this project was not only about photographs and video, which was done by my collaborator Adam Keller with the sound of Ariel Esther, but also about our research into this topic, as we wanted to know a little bit more than what we knew from the history books or from the stories of our parents. So during this project we would visit people from different layers of society, I would say, who experienced the regime very differently. For example, teachers, journalists, fashion designers, artists, politicians even. And on this you can see that basically there is not one way of looking at things. And while some people had very nostalgic, positive memories, other people had something very different. So we were trying in the project to not take any standpoint, rather to consider all of them, and based on that, based on some of these stories, create kind of mood, atmosphere, and our artistic interpretation of this. And we did this mostly through placing the human body inside of these impressively designed spaces. On most of the photos you can see that people form a certain pattern. It's also that each of the photographs kind of reflects on another topic we want to touch on, whether is it uniformity, surveillance, or censoring of opinions. And we kind of try to do this by arranging people in the space, both on photographs and on the videos. To switch to another, so I can say something also about the artificial tears, and maybe to compare them at the end. Artificial tears, both of them shot in Slovakia, where I'm from. Artificial tears started with thinking about what is the difference between human and machine, and seeing this topic as something which is kind of extending into the future, because normally our fears of technology or our thinking about it finds place in the future, and we are not so sure. It's also in the present, but we almost always fantasize from the current state how it's going to develop, where it can be dangerous, and how we can react to that. So basically it started with this, and when I was photographing, because the photographic project came as a first, it's again placing in these spaces which are very, very clean, very elegant, kind of stripped of any signs. This character, which you can almost never see. It's obviously female character, by how it's designed, by how it looks, and the character always finds itself or herself in some kind of, I would say, stereotypical situation, but it's not acting in that way. Character is usually just standing there, and for me it's this moment of contemplation in which I'm reflecting sometimes to my own feelings about this, and it's again in a way about the pattern, but in this way it's refusing the pattern, so it's the opposite way around. And the character is shown in this moment of contemplation, where it kind of sees the pattern of things and stops, and in a way thinks about to what extent our actions mechanical or predictable, or just made in order to fit into what the society expects. This, we would say, it's kind of a machine-like behavior, but this is what was interesting for me, that we are so scared of the machines becoming like human, while on contrary, what is interesting is humans becoming more and more like machines and acting in this way. What is also interesting, that in the process this project developed a little bit, because then I did from these photographs virtual immersive experience, also with sound, which is normally presented as one installation, and it's changed a lot, even though it's kind of continuing in this thought further, and it got a bit more specific because I got interested in the idea of the female machine, especially with the female voice assistants like Siri and Alexa. Where the interest started was looking at the history, whether of literature or cinema, where often we have this narrative of female machine and male inventor kind of female machine satisfying the needs of this inventor, or kind of just obeying and again acting in a certain pattern. And basically we can see the same thing repeating in, which is of course evolved in how the voice assistants, which are usually designed to be kind of female characters, are designed. For example, it's assistants on the first place, so they are made in order to serve, but also the way how they react, for example, to the customers offending them or being bad to them, it goes very well, goes not very well, but goes in the style of this what we call vintage femininity. So it kind of repeats this idea of women, which I think in current society is not really actual anymore. And in this, it's what was my interest again was to see that technology is such an important part of how we think about topics or like issues in society. And if technology will again be designed in a way which enforces the stereotypes, then how we are going to change them. And I also want to say that technology is right now a very important narrative, and we should not kind of repeat the things which we know in the past were wrong again in something which is so embedded into our culture, into our thinking. So in the artificial experience, artificial tears, the character kind of goes away from this passivity and is in the inner dialogue with herself and also with the viewer, with the person experiencing, again talking about different topics of visibility, power to look, power to decide, and at the end she basically finds her own power or realizes her own power to act and acts on it. So yes, I think I already talked quite a lot, so this is basically what these two projects are about. I would love to leave it up to you to think how they are connected. I often think about this as well, because I see that it's almost also part of my own personality, kind of dealing with topics, whether it's national history or role of the female or effect of the technology. So yes, this is it. Hope you enjoyed the show, or at least this talk. Bye bye.